All right, now let's go back there. Today, marking day 47 of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into criminality, political interference and corruption in the criminal justice system, known as the Madlanga Commission. I'm not going to say much more. I'm going to hand it back to Sakina and Kani. They are both there, and we're going to get some analysis. Sakina?
Indeed, Leanne, welcome back to the Madlanga Commission. We're here at the Bridget Mabandla Justice College in the nation's capital. It's day 47, and yesterday we had two witnesses, and it proved to be quite explosive. So just getting into what all of this means, because there are so many tentacles to what is unfolding here, that we're going to try and answer as many of it as we, of course, possibly can. And I'm joined right now by Ms. Lebogang Ramafoko, who is the Executive Director at Corruption Watch. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been watching these proceedings, no doubt, with very big interest, given Corruption Watch's prime responsibility. What have you made so far of what's been seen?
Well, I think from 2019, Sakina, Corruption Watch and the Institute on Security Studies released the report. That is after the Zondo Commission. And we also made submissions at the Zondo Commission around what we would like to see changing, given how we have seen that the executive then had hollowed up just to the justice system, the NPA, the Hawks, the SAPS. And what we are making up is that, in fact, had we acted and implemented some of those recommendations, we wouldn't be here right now. We are seeing, and that is the value of these commissions, just how deep the rot is going and how many people have been speaking out as whistleblowers, as some of the witnesses who, are Witness E and others have come in to see just how difficult it is for people who want to do right. And let us not forget them as we are listening to what is wrong that is happening, that there is a lot of people that want to do right and are now coming out because the Commission has given them an opportunity. I think for me, the sadness is we did not act from the Zondo Commission, and yet we are sitting at another commission and we are really listening to just how far deep the rot has gone.
So Zondo Commission, and you look at what we have now since learned here at the Madlanga Commission, it speaks to systemic weaknesses and rot within the entire criminal justice system. And so far we've heard quite a lot about what's happening within the policing part of things. So do you think that that has been perhaps in some way a mitigating factor as to why perhaps some of the recommendations from other commissions have not yet been fully implemented?
I think for me, sadly, it speaks to what I believe is a lack of political will. I think we cannot sit with the results of a commission with a lot of evidence gathered, a lot of people who meticulously went and gave their account of what happened, and we are yet at another commission and a very few recommendations have been done or have been implemented. I'll give you an example. One of the things that the study I spoke about recommended in our submission to the Zondo Commission was basically the reform of the Public Disclosures Act, where we protect whistleblowers. We make sure that, there is no retaliation that comes to them, particularly from those who, have been fingered on corruption. And here we are having a minister who has been fingered in multiple cases, being on special leave. So while it may look like he's been removed, the country is paying his salary. He's having all of the privileges of a minister. Now, that thing does not need you to get into more rot. Everybody in cabinet serves at the behest of the president. What we should have seen is the political will that says, I want to serve with members who are going to be beyond reproach, and there is enough that has been alleged that will make me remove, this particular person. We've spoken about really public engagement in the selection of key positions. We saw with the NPA, yes, there was a leaning towards a public process. But when it came to the end, the president used the letter of the law and appointed who he wanted to. Now, there is nothing wrong. We are not saying there is anything wrong with who he appointed, but it is just seeing how some commitments and recommendations that were made are just not followed, and nothing about hearing about this rot says we were not able, to implement very implementable recommendations, and we are dragging our feet.
I'm going to come back to the rot in the South African Police Service in a minute, but as far as the president goes, are you saying, therefore, that the president should fire Minister Mkun?
Absolutely. I think there's enough grounds for him to relieve him of his duties, because you want to see a president that says, I take this, seriously. You want a president that says, like he exercised with the selection of the NPA, I have a right to select who serves with me. And at this point in time, while we are looking at this, I am going to remove somebody who has been fingered in many ways. And in fact, by his own admission, did not deny that the disbandment, of that special task force in KZN was done in a proper manner. By his own admissions, he's now telling us immediately is not immediately as it's defined in the dictionary. And when it comes to that, you act because what is at stake right now? You can't the following day have the minister say, we've lost a battle with gangs. We can't deal with gangs. And you are still dilly-dallying about a minister who at least has been fingered. You cannot have Ket Matlala go and speak the way that he has spoken about his relationships to people who hold powerful positions, and you are still waiting. What must happen for things to actually take place, for us to see things taking place? And the assumption you can make is that what is probably preventing the president is party political machine, whatever it is that is happening, that are happening within the political party, because this is not in the best interest of the country to have Minister Mkun still being on special leave.
So coming back to the whole issue of accountability, and of course we need a properly functioning SAPS at the very first instance in order for the country to deal with criminality, with corruption. And from what we've heard so far in the 47 days of the commission sitting is an SAPS that is beset with problems, the rot that starts right from the top and runs very deep and is systemic. So how do we deal with that as a nation?
So one of the recommendations that we have made since 2019 was the fact that the appointment of key and strategic positions is rigorous and it's independent. And we make sure that people, including up to lieutenant, go through competency tests. One of the things that we have seen, even with some of the people that have appeared both at Madlanga and at the ad hoc committee, is that we are not appointing competent people. We are appointing political allies. We are not even appointing political allies that are going to advance even some of the very noble policies of the ANC. It's party political infighting and party political positioning that we are yet to understand as a country around how did some of these people actually, get those positions. And it is only when we implement that recommendation that we are going to have a public and transparent way of selecting some of these leaders. And they are going to be taken through competency tests.
Will we get to that point, given what we've seen so far? By your own admission, we've had several commissions before this one, and yet here we sit, commissions with recommendations that have been basically adhered to haphazardly. There's no real will, it would seem, to really deal with the serious matters that have been outlined in these commissions. And so why do you think that things will be different going forward?
So you need both. You need proper political will and it hasn't been shown. We've spoken about it, we've not demonstrated it, and talk is cheap. But you also need competent people. And I think the country is full of competent people. What you heard, was that there are people who are out there, who are able to, who want to speak up, who are able to speak up, and who have spoken up, but they have not been listened to. But you have absolutely realized that it has been deliberate to actually or appoint incompetent people who, apart from the fact that, they are there for reasons that we do not understand, are not capable of doing the job.
That points to a situation whereby what we are beset with is by design, not by default. So, given that it is by design, then surely those who created the system need to be out of the system for things to change. And for as long as that doesn't happen, the status quo remains.
No, absolutely. I think you are correct. And I think that for me calls on what is the public going to do. I think we need to move beyond watching this almost like our daily soap opera, where we go onto different social media platforms and, we speak about what happened. That is healthy. And I think that keeps all of us informed. But I think we all need Corruption Watch and others to go to the drawing board in that. What is the role of the public in demanding that the state deals with some of these issues as well?
And let's talk in terms of the role of the public through civic organizations like Corruption Watch, because from the evidence that's been adduced here at the Madlanga Commission, I was asking the question yesterday about the murder that took place in Ekurhuleni. There's a murder. There's a case that was open. Why hasn't anybody been arrested? Instead, now we have another body in the form of Witness D that speaks to that very same situation. So what becomes your role then? If ordinary South Africans think, I'm just a lay person, I'm just one person, I can't do anything, where do civic organizations like yourself step in order to move this thing forward?
I want to start with what happened in Kenya. Because in Kenya, young people mainly went to the streets, when taxes were being raised, etc. And they basically said, enough is enough. And I really think that we need to go back to the drawing board as civil society and think about, and as organizations like Corruption Watch, how do we get that kind of public participation? We are currently working with a number of CSOs in the Eastern Cape, building their own capacity of understanding their own rights around dealing with issues of corruption at a local level. And it speaks to the fact that many of us are not out on the ground really mobilizing communities.
Objection, but Corruption Watch, for example, took on the case of Dudumyeni when she was the chairperson of SAA and was declared a delinquent executive. So why then is Corruption Watch not taking on some of these cases more pointedly? And because you can. You've demonstrated in the past that you can. Why aren't you?
Well, we will. We definitely will. But I'm saying the strategy is not only taking matters to court. The strategy is to have sufficient intolerance to corruption in the communities.
But the two are not mutually exclusive.
They are not mutually exclusive, and they need to be done both. But, to your question, we cannot act because there will be so many things that we will have to do on our own without the backing of communities. And for me, what is important in our strategy, yes, we will litigate. Yes, we will demand that this is done. But the litigation is very expensive. It takes time. Where is, for me, the missing link is the way society and communities are intolerable to what is happening with corruption. And that is why for us, every whistleblower that comes and reports a case, it's an important partner because they are coming to us and they are saying, I am witnessing this and that happening.
People tell you that they don't trust the South African police services, and with good reason. So why would they come forward? Because that would be at a cost.
And many are, Sakina. Many are coming, and that is why for us, recommending that the Public Disclosures Act is basically amended to a point where everybody who comes to report is treated as a whistleblower. And we actually criminalize retaliation, because many of them who come, if they were in the workplace, they have lost their jobs and they must fight that case.
Because in this instance, we are hearing at the Madlanga Commission, the police is, in a state of total disarray as far as corruption goes. So who should people be reporting to, and why would you feel safe in doing so?
Many of them come to us. Many of us go to other civil society organizations, especially for the reasons that you point out. Many of them come to us and say to us, you are our last resort. We have reported before. We will need to beef up how we protect them. And places like, and organizations like Whistleblower House, for an example, will offer them the psychosocial, the legal support that is there. We will also try and work with them and partner with them to involve, the NPA and others. And that is what we are crying out for, even with some of these entities that are beefed up, paid for by the state. The ones that have more muscle than organizations like Corruption Watch seem to have been hollowed out. So we hope that, Advocate Mutibi is going to rebuild the NPA, because even those that need the NPA to act at this point in time are not acting. But more importantly, part of what the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council have said is that we need a body that will start with reporting up to prosecution, because right now the different agencies are not able to cope because they have been deliberately hollowed out. And unfortunately, it's going to take time. Yeah. It will need political will, and it will need public participation.
Lebogang Ramafoko, we could speak forever and ever, but we have to leave it there. The Executive Director of Corruption Watch, very interesting insights there, and to tell us what your views are at Morning Live SABC. With that, back to studio at 8.